So I've gotten quite a few questions about both the goat milk that I use as well as lye calculations and the differences and why it matters so much. And this was something that I never really understood until I was probably about a year into soap making, which is a little embarrassing, but it's the truth. And much of it comes from experimenting and playing with numbers and learning what it does to the soap itself. So I will try to save you my year of learning and break it down in the next couple of videos as I'm showing you my work here. So for this recipe and for most of my recipes, what you see me do is a 40 to 60 distilled water to goat milk lye solution. So what that means is I use the water portion of the recipe where it says, how much water to use. And I basically take 40% of that and add that as actual distilled water to my lye. And in that solution, as it gets very, very hot, I can then melt the silk fibers. And then I can also use the sugar that I use. I use powdered sugar. That was a tip I learned from Sorcery Soap, and it's fabulous. It adds extra bubbles and it adds a little bit more working time. So the biggest reason I do it this way is I need that lye to be hot enough to melt the raw silk. I don't like to use, I've tried like the liquid raw silk, amino acid additives. I have been told it's exactly the same. Maybe I am just a purist or I have other, tactile feeling differences than others. It doesn't feel the same to me. My soap doesn't feel as luxurious. It doesn't feel as nice on my skin when I don't use real raw silk. So if I want to include that in my recipe, I need the lye solution hot. On the other hand, if you want your goat milk to not scorch and smell hideous, as I keep on seeing everyone talking about how hideous milk soaps smell, you have to work at room temperature or colder. That's normally what I do when I add goat milk in recipes as 100% replacement. I freeze the goat milk. I slowly mix it in an ice water bath so it doesn't scorch and turn, that ugly, horrible orange color. So going back to why I do it this way. So now we've got the melted water with the silk and the powdered sugar. And then once it's cooled down, I add the sodium lactate. Now that sits at room temperature. So the next day I can soap and it's already basically master batched. I don't really master batch because it's not a giant jug of it. I just do a bunch of little individual mini batches, mostly to avoid having to do math. Again, if I've done it once, that's enough for me. I've done the math for the day and I don't want to do it again. So then what I do is I obviously have my oils. I melt my oils down and I let them come to room temperature or just above in the 80-85 degree range. I then add the lye to the soap itself. And once the mixed happen for a little bit, not emulsion, I don't want it totally emulsified because I want to add my milk. But when it's decently mixed in, I then add in the 60% remaining liquid to the batter of goat's milk. I use goat's milk because we have goats. We have lots of goats. I'm not going to give numbers on how many goats we have because my husband might watch this and it's a lot of goats. But that's why I use that. You can use other milk products. You can use buttermilk. You can use whole cow's milk. You can use coconut milk. There's really no limit to the milks that you can use that actually, give their own properties to the soap and makes a nice creamy bar of soap. Why goat milk soap? Well, again, see previous comment, we have a ton of goats, but much of it is the fact that we found in our own blind testing that up to 60%, 100% is always the best, but 60% you really can't tell the difference. With the goat's milk in the soap, it really makes it better. It's a better soap. It's milder, it's bubblier, it's got a better lather. It's just nicer. So that's why I do it that way. That's what works for me. And I've seen other larger scale soap makers who do something similar. That's where I learned it from. I didn't make this up myself. And I'm grateful for them for teaching me. So I'm trying to teach you. So now that we've talked in excruciating depth about lye and goat milk and why I do it that way, I am going to go ahead and get ready to pour this soap itself. I'm just adding the fragrance oil to it now. I know these fragrance oils behave, so I'm confident while doing this that I'll, be okay to do it this way. This is my third, I guess it's my third or my sixth, I can't remember exactly, attempt at the One Pot Wonder for the June 2020 Soap Challenge Club. I wanted to do another watermelon soap. I love watermelon. I love making watermelon soap. I'm now obsessed. So I see watermelons in every challenge, but I did not enter this soap, even though I really liked it, because I felt like my actual entry had better feathering. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, as I looked through the entries and there was about 1 million other watermelons. So apparently this was a popular thing to do. So I am just adding all the colors in now. This is neon pink from Nurture Soap and with some titanium dioxide. This is really red, also from Nurture Soap. And I think I added a little bit of the neon pink to it as well to lift it just a little. So I found with this particular design that the pour into the pot is just as important as the way you pour the pot. So you want to try to make sure it's along the wall. You want to go slow. You want to let it layer and build in the pot itself. Otherwise, it gets a little muddled. And I've seen some entries this month with amazing, beautiful in the pot swirls that were on purpose and they were fantastic. But for me to get that true feathering, that's the feathering itself and not just a, optical illusion because of the colors I used, I found this worked the best. I'm using my custom craft tools Cat Angler, and now we will just start pouring. I found velocity to be the most important factor when I was doing this. So going back and forth and to and fro at a pretty decent speed really made a difference. I didn't do it that quickly here, and I found my feathering not as beautiful as in later attempts when I went much faster. But you can still see the feathering, you can still see the soap coming through. It's very, very nice, and it turned out to be a really lovely bar, so it obviously wasn't too terrible. I have plans to do another attempt with a technique similar to this one. And again, more watermelon because, again, I'm obsessed with watermelon. With perhaps some poppy seeds. I might do some other things to, make it more interesting. We weren't allowed to do embeds for this month's challenge at the level that I normally would like to do an embed. So I was restricted that way, my creativity. So I'll come back to it later on. So I just took it off the custom craft tools little Cheshire Cat Angler, and I kind of kept it as an angle as I'm bringing it down. And I'm going to continue pouring the rest of this batter in, and then I'll slowly put it down just a little. There it goes. So I don't lose that beautiful angle that I already had. I found other bars of soap, if I wasn't as careful when I let it down, you can really see that in my green Willow and Ivy bar soap with the gold top. If you have been following me on Instagram, it has like a distinct spot where you can see that I put the soap down, and I don't like that. So that's the best way to do that. And now I am going to, at a very high reduced or highly sped up here, put on 1 million little soap dough watermelons. These watermelons were made with soap dough from B of Sorcery Soap. She's amazing and incredible, and if you have not found her yet, you should go find her, and I envy you the discovery that you're about to have because she's amazing. Her videos are amazing, her soap dough is amazing, her books have changed my life. I probably sound like a crazy person talking about her work, but I am just such a huge fan. So that's where most of the soap dough came from. I think all of it actually in this one is all, this is all B soap dough. So it's great, it's wonderful, it's pliable, it molds like nothing I've ever worked with. And so I hope you enjoy the rest of this of me just adding on little watermelons. And like I said, this has been sped up. I was not this fast putting this on. So don't think that I was. I'm not that good.